big change because Native peoples are doing something, right? So we might also be interested in, is this from one part of a permanent culture? And we want to figure out, is this all natural or is this built? My grandfather was an archaeologist.
Oh, cool.
My grandmother was an archaeologist.
Oh.
My uncle was an archaeologist. And my great uncle was an archaeologist. So archaeology ran in the family. And I love doing this because it's intellectually interesting and it allows me to be outside and I get to play in the dirt. I do what I love and I love what I do. I get to teach, which I enjoy doing, and I love working with students like you. I like to write and to do research, and I like to play in the earth. What I like about it is the intellectual possibilities, which is, we're putting together this very complicated puzzle through time and across space, including a bunch of trees. These are telephone pole size. So it allows me to do lots of things. So one day I can study, aardvarks, and the next day I can study zooarchaeology and everything in between. So I get to do lots of different things. What is my favorite experience in doing it? A lot of it has to do with the people I get to meet and the place I get to go. I've had the opportunity, for instance, to go to a place like China and get way into places where most Westerners, heck, most people in China don't even go, right? And so I get to meet these amazing people. I get to meet, people who live in these places. I get to meet great archaeologists. I get to meet wonderful students and colleagues. And at the end of the day, the amazing thing about it is I get paid to do this. At the end of the day, I get paid to think. I get paid to teach and talk to people. Science is incremental, and so our data are one part of a bigger set of stories. Another example of what we've been doing, this is a long time ago, a lot of work in coastal Louisiana and the Mississippi River Delta, measuring rates of change and how the delta itself was shifting around. And those data are being used by land managers because they're understanding the histories of these areas and how they can begin to preserve land and water and other resources. So I feel as if the work comes together very well in terms of not only being of use to the archaeological community, but to a wider scientific community. Like any educational process, at the end of the day, I think it's important because it's a tool that I can use to help educate you, and you will go on to become one of the leaders of the world. And to the extent that I can use what I can convey from this to help educate you about analytical thinking, about process thinking, about, looking at the world in a different way. Know that I believe, I'm big on, you're a really good observer. I can help you become a better observer of the world. That's an important consequence. It's less about geoarchaeology than it is about an educational process. One of the things that I hope is that archaeologists incorporate more of this kind of thinking into their research and use it as a tool to better understand the archaeological record so that we're making better statements about the past and what we know about it. To help you as an individual who's developing thinking skills, critical analytical skills, to be able to deal with these questions of evidence-based analysis and using that to be able to tell stories about the world around us. That you're a really good computer, and that using the basic tools that you have, your taste, touch, feel, smell, vision, all of these things, you can look at the world around you and put together these stories of how things got to where they are. And that means you can also look to where they came from. And I mean that in the sense of, whether it's soils and sediments moving down a hill or down a river or something like that. But if you're a business person, understanding, for example, how do I get to a decision about making certain business decisions? How do I allocate resources? How do I value different kinds of things? How do I make decisions? Because that's really what you're learning about as an undergraduate in college. It's really hard to teach curiosity, but I would encourage everybody to pursue curiosity. Be willing to ask questions and constantly be looking at the world and asking, why is that way? Is that the way it should be? How did it get there? Things like that. I think maybe along with curiosity is a certain kind of willingness to take risks. That's it. Think about what are the criteria you use. So we know this is human manufactured.
Storyteller. I mean, it made it easy to follow along to what you're talking about because you just told it very, very well for each little case study we did. My biggest takeaway is just to be logical whenever you're looking at things, whether it's geoarchaeology or if it's anything else. So appreciate you, Dr. Kidder.
A big takeaway I had from this class is just having more overall appreciation for my surroundings and a deeper understanding of them through a new lens that I wouldn't have known otherwise.
And I feel very similarly, and I think it's reflected in what my favorite project or activity we did in the class was, and that was the weekly observations. I saw myself looking closer at things throughout the weeks, and going into different events that I had in my life thinking, how does this relate to what we're learning, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Keeter!